Hello and welcome to this Logic tutorial on using MIDI Header Data. Okay, I've got my new track sheet up here, and the first thing I'm going to do is click to create a software instrument track. Logic always dictates you must have at least one software, external MIDI or audio track in your arrangement before you can open the page. You need to have something to program some information into or record into. We're not actually going to use this track, we'll get rid of it in a moment. What we want to do is we're going to import a MIDI file, an existing MIDI file, into our arrangement page and take a look at what's going on at the top of the file in terms of the MIDI header data that is already there. So what I'm going to do is go up to the File menu here and go to Import. Notice you can also access that from clicking Command and I, and that brings up our import screen. So for bringing in things like MIDI files, etc., this is the command you want, and I've got my folder here already accessed with the MIDI file that I want to import into Logic. So I'm going to go ahead and click Import, and that's just looking at the information in the file there, working out what each of the different sounds are, and it said that the new SMPTE frame rate it wants to use. We'll click OK, that's fine. Good. So if I click play on our sequence, we should hopefully great. So we've got our MIDI file playing, but what really interests us at the moment is actually what's going on at the top of this file. In order to look at this information, we're going to look at a MIDI view called the List Editor, which is basically just a sequential chronological list of every one of the MIDI messages in your arrangement, and that's been separated out on to the different tracks on which the instrument sounds play through. And at the top here you can see we've got another what looks like a global information track. It's this EVP 88 electric piano I no longer need, so I'm just going to click backspace and delete that. And we want to take a look at a particular region and the header data that's contained within it. So over on the right hand side of our Logic window we have our media library, our lists area and our notes area. So I'm going to click on the lists button and we're going to take a look at our event list here, which is over on the left hand side. So you can see at the top here we've got some different information about each of the events contained at the top of the file, so it just gives you essentially a track list there. We click on this global list at the top. You can see there's some metadata. That's where you can just put information about the file. So we've got a meta event in here that tells that this is a tune called Mercy 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 by Joe Zawinul. Okay. Now what we're going to take a look at is the header data contained at the top of each of these instrument channels. Okay? So if I click on the acoustic bass track, we can see that the acoustic bass track is playing back through MIDI channel 1, and we've got a few bits of information right at the top of the file that just help to establish the start volume of that particular timbre, the placement in the stereo field or the pan of that particular timbre, and finally the program or the timbre that's being played back itself. So we have two control changes, control change 7, which has been put to the maximum value of 127, control change 10, pan, which is at 30 at the moment. Now the default value with pan is center is 64, or essentially halfway between 0 and 127. So you need to do a bit of simple maths in order to get your pan working. If I just come over to the upright bass track here and just click on that, we can see that it's got a pan value of -34. So to extract that pan value, it's quite easy for us to see that 64 minus this pan value of 30 is going to give you a value of 34 minus 34, which means it's to the left hand side. Okay? Take a look at another track for a moment. You can see that automatically updates in the window there. We've got our electric piano track, which is program number 5. That's been set to 100 in volume, and it's panned it's panned all the way to the left. I do apologise. Just take a look at that and double check. Yeah, and you can see that's been panned hard left. So a value of 0 hard left. 64 would be centre. If I just click on that and tap 127, we can see that that's now panned that hard right. Great. So I think we've learnt a bit about what goes into a standard header data file. At the top of the sequence, with a from the internet sequence, you might expect to find some meta information about the MIDI file itself, and you can enter that in any sequencer. On each of the tracks, you'll find that defined for that channel number, there is a timbre, a program number for the timbre we wish to use. There is some volume and some panning information to set the start volume and the start pan position in the stereo field for that particular timbre. So I think the next logical thing for us to do is actually take a look at programming in, on a fresh Logic page, our own MIDI header data.